Peter Greenberg's Global Travel Update is presented by New Mexico True.
Hello, everybody. I send you greetings from the Ionian Islands in Greece. In fact, off the island of Kefalonia on this first Thursday of August 2026. Happy hot summer, everybody. It's about 100 degrees outside here. It's about 100 degrees outside in Rome, 100 degrees outside in Spain, 100 degrees outside in France, where they have yet to discover air conditioning. And, of course, we all know what's going on in the U.S. I'll explain that a little bit later. But first and foremost, happy Thursday. Lots to talk about today. First and foremost, we talk about the hot summer. It's crowded in Europe. It's crazy in Europe. Even though Americans are holding back on the month of August in terms of doing a lot of new bookings, a lot of these bookings were made before oil prices went up, and they're still flocking to Europe. There are some empty planes, but bottom line is going into the fall, there's going to be a lot of softness as Americans are holding back on their travel plans. However, having said that, that's not stopping everybody else in the world from coming to Europe. And I'm going to show you a little video of how crazy it is right now in parts of this continent. Roll the tape. Imagine your worst high school class trip ever in 100-degree weather. Welcome to Athens. Welcome to Rome. Imagine 30,000 people a day trying to climb up the Acropolis in 100-degree weather. That's not just over tourism. That's a medical emergency. Crazy. If you want to come, remember what I've always said. It starts next month. September is the magic month. But for now, it's crazy. They haven't learned their lesson. Some other things to talk about the hot months. Oh, and I do want to ask everybody a question I want to get your input on, because I see it happening over and over and over again on every flight that I'm on. And that is, what's your protocol for going to the bathroom on an airplane? Do you prefer to use the airport restroom before you get on board, or do you want to use the lavatory once the plane's in the air? I know the answer I have. I never want to use the lavatory on the plane. If I'm sitting in a window seat, that means I got to climb over everybody to get to the lavatory, dodge the beverage cart, and of course, be reminded by the flight attendant, there's a line, go back to your seat. If I'm sitting in the aisle or the middle seat, there's somebody climbing over me. Why would you do that to yourself? So use the airport bathroom. You'll be happy you did. Now, there's one other hidden benefit to this, which, by the way, doesn't benefit us at all, but I'll share it with you. The latest research shows that if only half the passengers who use the airline lavatories use the airport lavatories, the airport bathrooms, the weight savings and the fuel savings would save airlines about $1 million per plane per year. Will they pass the savings on to you? No. So let's all get pissed off. Okay, that's the end of that pun. We'll move on. But I'd love to hear from you. Are you an airport bathroom person or an airline bathroom person, or do you hold it the entire flight and wait till you get to your destination? Some people have better bladders than others. Okay, moving right along on that. The tourism invasion notwithstanding, there are other things to talk about, and they're financial. There are at least 5 airlines that I know about that are sitting on the bubble financially, and they may not be around next year. Some may surprise you, some may not. Norse Atlantic, you remember those guys, the discount carrier? I've flown them many times. They do a great job, but you can't be a discount carrier, a low fare carrier in a high oil price world. and they're desperately out there searching for a buyer now. They've trimmed their fleet, they've trimmed their schedule. We all saw that was that's exactly what happened with the prelude to the end of their existence at Spirit. Norse is following the same track. Hopefully they find a buyer. We don't want anybody to go out of business. We all know that. But then there are airlines like SAS, Finnair, TAP, legendary carriers, right? Legendary legacy flag carriers that are in big trouble financially. They're either trying to get privatized, they're trying to merge, or they're looking for a bailout, which I don't think is going to happen in the year 2026 from any government. And then closer to home, we've got JetBlue with a $9 billion debt load. How do you get out from under that? Well, you don't, unless somebody buys you. Now, United Airlines is claiming they're no longer interested in JetBlue. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that argument. And my guess is if things continue along their present path, I wouldn't be surprised to see JetBlue be bought by United by February or March of next year if they're still in business. That's a pretty bold statement for me to make, but let's go take a look at the numbers. Right about the time that Spirit was trying to get a bailout from the United States government, which they didn't get, and it wouldn't have made much difference, what did JetBlue do? They own a lot of their planes. So they refinanced 22 of their planes to raise about $500 million in assets, in cash, so that they can continue to fly for the rest of 2026. That's about it. No guarantees about 2027. That's the problem. We will be watching that space. Speaking of watching that space, most of you may be familiar with what we call the 24-hour rule. The 24-hour rule is actually a rule. It's on the books with the U.S. Department of Transportation. It's been on for a while, and it's actually something that protects passengers. Wow, that's a surprise coming from the DOT, but it's there. And what it says is, if I make a reservation today for a flight on any U.S. carrier, and I decide within the next 24 hours of making that reservation, I can't go or won't go, I'm entitled to a direct and immediate refund, not a flight credit, a refund of my purchase. Now, if it goes beyond that, there are no DOT rules, but there's some airline policies that were started by United Airlines during the pandemic, where they got rid of all the change fees. That was long in coming, and hats off to United for that. So that if you cancel after that 24-hour period, you don't lose your money, but it comes in the form of a flight credit that's good for a year that you can then use on any United flight. The one caveat there is the clock starts ticking from when you made the actual purchase, not from when you wanted to fly. So if I make a reservation for 6 months from now and 3 days from now I cancel that flight, I get a flight credit that starts ticking today, right? Or if I decide 5 months from now to cancel the flight, that means my travel credit's only good for maybe 6.5 months. Just be aware of that. But here's where it gets a little tricky, and the airlines are getting sneaky. Remember I said United ended all those change fees? If you go back 6 years, you may remember that if you change the ticket, in most cases, the amount of the change fee they would assess to change that ticket was essentially wiping out the whole value of the ticket. It was a bad situation. United changed that, good for them. But what's happening now in 2026? A number of airlines are doing something sneaky that they're not posting, they're not disclosing. You need to find out about it before you ever make a reservation. And that is, let's say you make a reservation today, and 3 months from now you want to change, they'll give you a flight credit minus, here it comes, a change fee that can be as high as $400. So before you ever go online and lock something in, I know it's old school technology, but it's called the telephone. Pick it up, call the airline, and get them to confirm to you if they are now assessing change fees on canceled flights, minus and then taking that away from whatever flight credit you deserve. What angers me the most about this, and it should anger you, is that when you're making an advanced reservation and you're paying for it when you're making the reservation, aren't you giving the airlines an interest-free loan? Of course you are. And, you don't ask for interest. You're not asking for anything else back except what you paid for it. So the double whammy here is if you get a flight credit for what you paid for, I suppose, relatively speaking, that's fair. But if they're going to give you a flight credit minus a change fee, that's double dipping, folks. Shouldn't be allowed. Don't expect the DOT to rescue you. Under the Trump administration, they have a very big, uh, philosophy against any kind of regulation. That's just their stance on everything. So you're going to have to do that yourself by getting the airline to fully disclose it and then make your decision accordingly. Speaking about DOT rules and FAA rules, you saw the story this week about a plane that was allowed to take off from Ronald Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C. at the moment that the president's helicopter Marine One was transiting the area. Doesn't anybody remember what happened back in 2025 with the collision of the Army helicopter with the American Airlines plane, the terrible fatal disaster there? At the end of that, and the investigation continued, what do we discover? Not hundreds, thousands of reported cases of near collisions between commercial planes and military aircraft in that airspace, which tends to be restricted to begin with. You have a very narrow corridor once you take off from Reagan because you've got the White House and all the monuments there. So what did they do? They announced they wanted to put in regulations completely limiting military aircraft from transiting Reagan's airspace. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Has that been implemented yet? It has not. Why? Guess who's lobbying against it? Not the airlines, the Pentagon. This is crazy. But remember, no plane ever crashes for any one reason. And in the case of what happened at Reagan with the American Airlines plane and the Army helicopter, it wasn't just the helicopter in an area where he was not supposed to be, that he was also not transponding with the right kind of equipment to give the controller the information that he needed to be able to talk to that helicopter and that helicopter alone and to know exactly where he was. But you had a staffing issue in the tower. Remember, of 313 air traffic control facilities in America, 311 remain understaffed as I speak to you. So we have issues here that didn't get solved as a direct result of that terrible accident in Washington. And now we just had a problem where a plane was allowed to take off right in the middle of traffic. In this particular case, Marine One carrying the president. Not good. So it's time for the DOT to implement some rulemaking here and not wait. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. All right, so much for that. Now, we talked about the 24-hour rule. I'm going to move on from that. And this is one that it's about situational awareness every time you check into a hotel. So let me walk through this for you. Every time you check into your hotel room, I know what you're doing, like me. You're trying to figure out how to operate the thermostat, which I can never figure out, or all the buttons on the remote control, which you need a tutorial on for the TV, or maybe you're looking for the coffee maker or the ice bucket. But there are three things you got to look for that go way beyond that. And two of them, and sometimes three of them, have a direct impact on your safety. Look to the ceiling. Is there a smoke detector up there? And is it hardwired, not battery powered? Is there a heat sensor up there? Same issue, hardwired or battery powered? And in some hotels, is there a carbon monoxide alarm? Okay, you want all three up there because that directly impacts your safety while you're staying at the hotel. And the reason why you want it hardwired is because everybody learned their lesson when they put battery-powered ones up there because it was cheaper to buy. Guess what? Guests were stealing the batteries. So they were inoperable. Even worse. Well, luckily, a lot of the fire codes in many cities have been revised to insist and demand that these instruments be hardwired. But I mentioned three of them, right? Smoke detector, heat sensor, and carbon monoxide alarm. But now there's another one you got to look for up there, number 4. And it has no impact whatsoever on your safety, but it may have an impact on your hotel bill when you check out. It's an air quality sensor. And what's it doing up there? To determine if anybody's breaking the rules by either smoking or vaping in their room, which could have a pretty hefty fine, and some hotels have up to $300 for a cleaning charge. So that's the problem. It's your word against the hotel word with that air quality sensor. And what makes matters interesting is anytime you check into a room and you detect an overwhelming smell of disinfectant cleaner, that can only mean one thing. The person who was in your room before you was smoking. And there's no guarantee that even with all that disinfectant, that the air sensor won't think that you're smoking too. So every time I check into a hotel now, if I smell that disinfectant, I immediately ask for another room, and you should too. Speaking of asking for another room, how about that for a segue? We all know about the issue of overcrowding at airport lounges or airline lounges. You remember the old Groucho Marx line that I would never join a club that would have me as a member. Well, what about joining a club that would have me as a member, but I can't get in anyway because it's too crowded because the airline or the credit card company oversold the deal. And there's just too many people in there. That's not a new story. Here's what's the new story. There are now so many people crowding into these lounges who, in many cases, who cannot find a seat or a table, that there's been a rise in what? Theft. Theft of valuables from people's bags. Let me set the scene. You take your rollerboard and your personal item and you walk into the lounge. You can't find a seat, but you still want to get something to eat. The bad hummus and the sweaty carrots. So you roll your bag up to a wall and go over and stand in another long line to get the bad food or to get a drink. And while that's going on, a number of thieves are now taking advantage of this sea of humanity. And what are they doing? They're lifting valuables from your stuff, which you never notice because when you leave the lounge, what's the next thing you're going to do? Get on a plane. Maybe you don't even notice it until you land. Damage is done. So we all know the admonition of do not leave valuables unattended at the airport or luggage. Well, guess what? These may be billed as private lounges. Not anymore. They're public spaces. I know it's going to be awkward, a little delicate balancing act, but if you're going to get into that lounge, that crowded, overcrowded lounge, and you want to get something to eat, take your bags with you. When you get up, your valuables go with you. All right? You heard it from me first. All right, let's say hello to some people here. Linda saying hi from Naples. Jim and Harriet coming in number 2 today from Richmond, Virginia. And Robin saying good afternoon from Williamsburg, Virginia. Paul is saying greetings from Ashland, Virginia. 2 Virginias there. Sue saying hi from Bellingham, Washington. Camilla is cheers from Tucson. Yes, hot here too. Well, we knew that. I'll explain where I'm going tomorrow, which is also going to be hot. All right. Paul is saying, can you spot the American in each of these videos? Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I can, but I'm going to hold my tongue on that. All right. All right. Someone named Tall Teasy is saying, hello, what are some good places to travel from the East Coast during hurricane season to avoid a potential flight cancellation or delay? Well, before we do that, let's define hurricane season. It used to be, September, October. Not anymore. It's now August through November, and it's heading further south these days. We used to have something called the hurricane belt. We still do, but it may not be appropriate anymore in terms of accuracy. I mean, I love places like, Barbados, Grenada, because they're outside the hurricane belt. Unfortunately, places like Jamaica, the Bahamas, they get hit hard, and it's tough. But right now, here's what you do: you roll the dice. There are no guarantees. I can't tell you how fast a hurricane is going to develop or how soon we're going to hear about it. The only thing we do know is we have pretty good advance warning, at least 4 or 5 days ahead, so we can plan. But you're not making a reservation 4 or 5 days ahead. You're making a reservation 3 or 4 months ahead. So go ahead and make that reservation, but also investigate travel insurance or check with the resort that you're going to. Many of them actually now are promoting hurricane guarantee insurance, that if a hurricane disrupts your trip so you can't go or disrupts it in the middle of the trip, they'll invite you back at their cost next year and you'll start all over again. But that's what you got to do. So there's no way I'm going to tell you where to go to avoid a hurricane where we have no idea where one's going to develop and which way it's going to head. But what you can do is investigate trip cancellation interruption insurance, the hurricane guarantee offered by a number of beach resorts. And remember, pay with a credit card, because there's only one more thing you have to know. When it comes to weather insurance and all travel insurance, if it's just high winds and raining where you want to go, your insurance doesn't cover that. The airport has to be closed It has to be a named hurricane, and all airline operations have to cease. That is when that insurance policy kicks in. Just if it's just raining and you don't want to go, there's another insurance you can buy. It's called CFAR, cancel for any reason. But I have to caution you, it's a very expensive premium, and at most, if you invoke it, you get about half your travel investment back. You don't get paid back 100%. All right? All right. Linda's saying, that video is why my husband and I travel in the shoulder season. Look, I'm a huge fan of the off season. I'm right now in Greece in the middle of the high season. It's hot. We have wildfires here. Over this last couple of months, we've had wildfires in Turkey, in Greece, in France, in Spain. It's a little messy. It hasn't stopped people from coming, but I'm here working. If I wasn't here working, I'd be here next month. That's the magic month in the Mediterranean. That's the magic month in the Aegean. That's the magic month just about everywhere. Okay, Mr. Raymond Bixon is saying, aloha from the Bixonettes. Right back to you, sir, and all the Bixonettes. Okay, Kristen's saying, hello from Bellingham, Washington. Don't use the lav and drink less. There you go. By the way, if you've been in the airline or in the airline lavatories of, let's say, a 737 MAX on American, I challenge you, and if anybody can make this challenge, let me know. I challenge you to open the door, go in, and try to wash both hands in the sink at the same time. You can't. That's how small it is. All right. Jim and Harriet's going for the airport lavatory. All right. Hello, Betty. Hello, Mark from Port Hueneme. I used to fly out of Port Hueneme when Reagan was president, because that's how you flew back on Air Force One back to D.C. I had a chance to do that. Okay, Barbara's saying, I'm flying from, I can't read this. Oh, you're flying to Rome next year, end of April, returning end of May. Buy now or wait. Well, you know what? There are so many ways now that you can buy a ticket and get alerts so that if the fare drops, you can get some money back and basically arbitrage that ticket. So unless you're going to go at the end of April, I don't think that's coinciding with Easter in Rome, big time. Coming back in May before everybody crazy comes, you know what? The fare should be relatively low right now. But even so, make sure you get to a service. I mean, Google Travel. Google Flights, and there are a couple of other services I can recommend on our website that I'll do for you that will actually monitor your trip. And if the fare goes down, they will actually get you the lower fare and give you the difference, and they'll take a small commission for it, but they're going to be watching it for you. It's a pretty good idea. All right, Dorothy says, Northern Nevada, Dayton, 102 today, and it's even in the 90s at Lake Tahoe for the week. Yeah, we're seeing that all across the country. All right, got to be watching for that. All right. Paul says, the bathroom, sometimes you can't wait. There are some strategies to using the plane bathroom. Make sure you hit it before they start the last service prior to landing on long flights. Or if you're in boarding group 1, use it before you even take your seat. Or at the very least, get the window seat. You'll still have people climbing over you, but you get a head start. Okay. Sue says, have I been to Phi Phi in Thailand? That's a real name of an island in the south. It's Koh Phi Phi. I have many times. There are so many wonderful islands down there. Going to Bangkok, Chiang Mai, Phuket for 2 weeks, you will love Koh Phi Phi or Koh Krabi or Koh Samui. Yeah, I love it. The one thing, speaking of hot summer, all year round, the one thing you're not ready for, as beautiful as the water there is on the coast, it's bath temperature. It's just the way it is there. Just be aware of that. All right. And Paula says the shoulder season is now November and March for Europe. I get it. But if you go to the south of France, it starts in September. So many places close, but not all the places, and it's still wonderful. All right. Stephanie's saying, hi from St. Petersburg. All right. In Florida. Tisha here, airport bathroom always. I only use the airplane bathroom if the flight is over 3 hours. Colleen says, I skip the morning coffee, use the airport lavatory, and hydrate after landing. There you go. Mark is saying, how long will shareholders allow the current American Airlines C-suite to remain in place as AA plummets to last place in customer service? Well, Mark, there's another issue here. CEOs don't lose their jobs because of customer service. CEOs lose their jobs because of financial performance and stock value. Delta just recorded unbelievable profits. So did United. American, break even. In the middle of the same environment economically as everybody else. How did that happen? A lot of shareholders are starting to ask that question. And that's what's going to determine the longevity of the current leadership at American. If there's a way for them to find their way back to serious profitability. The problem is when things like this happen and they want to come back to serious profitability, they come after revenue any way they can get it. Remember those change fee ideas and everything else? It's not a pretty picture. Okay. Hello from Indonesia. Okay. Hello, Risman. Evelyn saying, greetings from Bogota, Colombia. We got everybody on board today. Paul saying, what is your opinion of EVA Air to fly to Asia as opposed to Korean Air, JL, and Thai? I'm leaving Singapore Air out of this. Any others based in service and comfort? Well, I actually like EVA Air, but I really like Korean Air. Korean Air has done an amazing job. They've got a great fleet. They've got great service. They've got great food. They do it right. And they fly to a great airport. The airport in Incheon is cutting edge, really. I mean, if you want to look at the greatest airports in the world, it's Hong Kong, Singapore, Incheon. I'd even throw Haneda in there as opposed to Narita in Japan. And let's not forget, those are just the Asian airports. Bangkok, okay, but the other ones are great. Singapore, I mentioned. And then in the Gulf, you got to throw in Hamad for where Doha is and where Qatar is based. What an airport that is. I mean, every time I'm in Doha, I try to get to the airport 3 hours early, then 3 hours early. I try to get there 6 hours early. The lounges there are not oversold, and they're brilliant. But I checked EVA Air I have no problem with, and Korean Air, I love it. Okay. How will we know just by looking if these devices are hardwired or battery operated? Very simple. When you check in, before you get your key, ask the front desk clerk, can you please call engineering and confirm to me that all your fire safety devices are hardwired? Answer, you'll get. Okay. Melanie's saying hi from rainy Miami. Scott's saying hello again from Chicago. Okay. Adrian's saying morning here from Huntington Beach, Surf City. And Lorena's checking in from Lansing. Matthew says, U.S. passport. Oh, my U.S. passport arrived in 6 days after I applied for a renewal. That may be a record. Did you do it through the post office? That would even be more of a record. It was a routine renewal with regular shipping. The estimate had been 4 to 6 weeks. Well, what does that tell you? It's what I've been saying all along. Americans are holding back on their travel this summer, starting by stopping reservations in May, right? Big slowdown. So the applications for passports slowed down with it. Thanks for telling us about that too. All right. Aloha to Dan, my buddy Dan. Patrick's saying hi, probably from California if he's in town. Russell's saying greetings from LA. All right. Joy's saying, is that a good time to get cruise travel deals for September and October? Well, right now, the interesting thing about cruises is that the shipyards are very busy. They're coming out with ships of every size and pedigree. And now you have to see, is demand anywhere near capacity? And the answer is, in the next month or two, it won't be. There'll be excess capacity. So look for deals. You're going to find them. All right. Thank you for that nice comment, Evelyn. Russell's saying, what's your take on early check-in fees from hotels? Oh, please. Another way to generate revenue in nickel and diming and not disclosing. By the way, speaking of not disclosing, well, I'll finish that thought first. Speaking of not disclosing, I was at a hotel near San Diego in Chula Vista. It was a Gaylord resort, and they had me reserved for 4 nights. I didn't need to stay 4 nights. So at the end of the third night or the second night, I checked out on the third day. They wanted to charge me a fee for leaving early. So they want to get you for checking in early and leaving early? Ugh. I mean, look, these can all be negotiated when you make the reservation, but you can't negotiate that online. Back to the old days of the telephone, pick up the phone, call the manager on duty, not reservations, not the front desk. Have a nice conversation, not an adversarial one, and say, hey, here's my situation. Can we work something out for me to either check in early or if I have to leave early without being penalized? Remember, I don't want to just stay at your hotel once. I want to be able to come back and tell all my friends. Get it? Let's hope that works. Oh, by the way, speaking of not disclosure, I promise I get back to that. A lot of people will go online and book through a third party, like an OTA, an online travel agent, or even a third party operation that you don't even know about that masquerades as a legitimate agency. And they will take your booking, they'll quote you a price, and the hotel will accept that booking and accept the money. But what the OTA doesn't tell you sometimes, or these third-party sites, is that the hotel, and by the way, it'll say on the screen, everything included in the rate. And next thing you know, you find out, we've had this story before about the resort fee as much as $60 a night. But here's a new one we didn't know about. There was one hotel that was actually charging a $40 reservation fee coming in through a third party. So when the traveler complained, and rightfully so, what happened? Well, nobody wanted to take responsibility. The hotel said, well, we don't know these guys, this agency that booked it. But wait a minute, you took the reservation and you took the money, didn't you? The reservation agency basically said, oh, it was the hotel that charged you. Guess what? They're all in cahoots and they're all responsible. This would make a great small claims court case. Again, it's all a matter of demanding full disclosure, and you can't always do that online. Just remember I said that. All right, Michelle saying hello from Long Island, where I hope to be in a couple of weeks. Joy saying, if you always need wheelchair assistance, is it necessary to get global entry? Why wouldn't you get global entry? If you need wheelchair assistance, you still have to clear U.S. Customs and Immigration. Yes, the answer is yes. Okay? All right. Now, let us go. Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about. I almost forgot. Couple things. We have some questions here that were sent in earlier. Brad wants to go to Morocco and Egypt this September. Should he go, he asks, because of what's going on in the world? And the answer is, based on situational awareness and checking in on everything day to day, my qualified answer would be a yes. I get to Egypt all the time. My last name is Greenberg. No problemo. Morocco's not in the line of fire. I would suggest you consider that then. Tom wants to know, I hear this all the time. Lately, the TSA pre-check lines are longer than the regular lines. That's been going on since they've had pre-check, but for different reasons. When the TSA first started pre-check, which, I get it about the trusted traveler, not everybody was signing up for it. So they wanted people to sample it. So the TSA officers often take people in the regular line and move them into the TSA pre-check line. They had no idea what they were doing there. They had no idea what to do there or why they were there. And it slowed everything down. That's not the reason anymore. The reason now is a lot of people are members of pre-check. And it's a staffing issue from the TSA about how many lines are going to open up. Remember, it's not just a government shutdown issue. It's a staffing issue. And how do you actually rotate your staff at the appropriate time? Why is it that the TSA is always training their officers at 7 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon during the two biggest crunch times where every bag's going to get stopped for a minute? Think about how much that adds up to your wait in line. Why don't you train your guys and your women at 11 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, right? It's key to when you take your breaks too. Okay. And now, I know what. We got to go to the photo of the week. Let's do it. Hello, Joanne DeBona took this. And where does she take it? Come on. Where? In Patagonia, on board a seaborne ship. She was on a Zodiac, one of the ribs. Isn't that beautiful? Nature's own sculpture. Love that. Joanne, nicely done. And if you think you've got a photo that qualifies for the photo of the week, just send it to us. Photo contest at petergreenberg.com. And if we agree that it belongs up there next to Joanne's, guess what? It goes up there next to Joanne. So Joanne, thanks for sending that in. We have a question also from Scott, who wants to know, He wants to go in June of next year to Nova Scotia. And what can I recommend? Well, first of all, I love Nova Scotia. I go at least once a year. It's a beautiful place. And there are islands around Nova Scotia that are also beautiful. It's a great place to go, by the way, in May and September, right? Off season. One of the all-time great maritime museums is in Nova Scotia. People forget that's where the Titanic was heading. So they have a big exhibit there on the Titanic. Also, one of the maritime disasters in history, not the Titanic, even much worse, happened in Halifax about 100 years ago, even I think over 100 years ago. And they have an amazing exhibit on that. You have to watch it to really understand what happened there. Some great restaurants there. One of my favorites is called The Bicycle Thief. Go there, you'll love it. And you can do day trips out of Halifax as well. So heartily endorse it. And so please go. You will not be disappointed. A couple of housekeeping notes. I mentioned it's 100 degrees here in Greece off the island of Kefalonia. I'm leaving tomorrow to fly back to another hot spot. We'll be reporting from the Virtuoso Travel Week. But before we get there, we're going to be in New York. The radio show this week is coming from a delightful place, a very charming inn in the Hamptons, in East Hampton, called The Hedges. So check it out on Saturday. It's, of course, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you can't find it in your neighborhood, it's easy to listen to. We stream it live. Just go to petergreenberg.com, go to the website. You will hear the show. So this weekend, the show is coming from the Hamptons. And then next week, I'll be in Las Vegas for Virtuoso Travel Week, where it is 110 degrees. So we're keeping the hot summer theme alive. Want to thank Anthony for handling the boards for us back in California today. I'm getting ready for my flight tomorrow. So thanks, everybody, for watching. Email me any questions during the week, peter@petergreenberg.com. Check out the radio show. We'll see you next week, and have a great rest of the week.
Peter Greenberg's Global Travel Update is presented by New Mexico True.